One of the biggest discussions I've seen come about in recent years, months, and weeks of One Piece discussions, whether they be on Reddit or YouTube videos, are Yonko centric, obviously. But the main crux of the discussions that I've been seeing are they disappointing? Are they a disappointment? Do they not live up to the hype? So in today's video, we will actually be discussing, albeit more briefly, whether or not they are disappointing per se, and why the fan base may or may not have had higher expectations than they realistically should have. One thing we have to get out of the way is that the Yonko were written to be defeated, or rather overcome, one way or another, whether they're overcome by Luffy, or they just have to be defeated during the time, or rather the time of the story. Biggest example being Whitebeard. He wasn't defeated by Luffy, nor was he even antagonistic towards Luffy. However, he was written to eventually die, to basically start the newest age of piracy. And the main three that will obviously be defeated by Luffy one way or another are Blackbeard, Big Mom, and Kaido. And then there's the last of the Yonko Four Emperors, Shanks. Now, obviously he's not antagonistic to Luffy, and I honestly don't see Luffy quote-unquote defeating him, because there is no reason to fight him in a straight-up brawl of any sort. Whether it be through something as cliche as a bet, or just a Davy back fight, which would be a great use of that from back in the Long Ring Longland arc. But nonetheless, one way or another, he is at least, Shanks is a stepping stone, or at least a benchmark of what Luffy aims to become. Because you have to remember, Shanks is not a mentor, but he is what inspired Luffy to want to be a pirate, more so than anything. So in one way or another, Luffy does have to thematically overcome Shanks as well. So all 5 of the 4 emperors have been written to be defeated, and that is something that many of the fans tend to forget when they're looking at them, because when we think about the hype factor, they're all basically hyped up to be these immovable walls, with the slight exception of Shanks, whose first appearance does see his arm get beaten off by a relatively weak Sea King. Nonetheless, all 5 of them are basically the endgame level bosses of the world that we at least know of. I'm not getting into Rocks or Eam, and honestly, the Admirals are their own video, although I will tackle them in a different way alongside the Yonko in an upcoming video. Nonetheless, the 3 that Luffy has to go up and defeat have to be defeated. So no matter how much Oda hypes them up, he wants to make them seem difficult, like a challenge. But we take a lot of that challenge and hype verbatim, and we think these guys are absolutely undefeatable. Now, obviously, today's video is not to get into how the defeat comes through, whether or not Oda writes them one way or another, or whether their personalities show that they aren't exactly the legends that we have been made to believe they are. Because in the end, 1, thematically, they all have to be defeated, and that was always the end game for all of them. And 2, in the end, in-world is where most of these legends come from. And we have to remember, information and legends can sometimes be bigger than expected, or in some cases understated. Look at Buggy, for example. He has nothing but legend. But even the Yonko, do they have to live up to that legend 100%? No. And that is specifically because if they lived up to the legend 100%, they would be counter to the goal of defeating them, which is the goal of putting them in the story. They are obstacles to overcome. You can't overcome an obstacle that cannot be overcome. You can hype it up and make it seem as if they would be nearly impossible to overcome. And the in-world use of information and hype and legends does exactly that. Sometimes we end up being the civilians in the One Piece world, and we just take every little thing as, not really, what's the term? Word. We take it as gospel, basically. And we really shouldn't be doing that. Now, whether you want to contest that or not, you have to agree with the fact that they were all, one way or another, written to be defeated or overcome. So no matter how high your levels of hype were for any of the 5 of the 4 Yonko, you have to remember that simple fact. Before you say, oh, they were disappointing, they shouldn't be defeated so easily. Well, one, they haven't been defeated yet. And the one that we have seen defeated took a hell of a lot to defeat. Man literally got his head blown the fuck off, and he was still going for the longest friggin' time. On that note, the next video I do on Yonkos will be more on their actual power. Not in a quote-unquote power scaling sense, but more of what separates them. And this was an idea I actually not got from directly, but kind of picked up on a session of showering and listening to other YouTubers, and then picking up little bits and pieces. So at the very least, if you are interested in seeing where my thoughts in the shower take me, please do click that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification to be notified when that video does drop. Otherwise, do leave this video a like if you actually have made it this far, or a dislike, but more importantly, comment on your thoughts of whether you were actually disappointed by the Yonko, and be honest on that, and be honest of whether your expectations were realistic or more based off of the legend. Now, I have been Smalls. Thank you guys for listening. Hope to see you guys again next time. Stay safe.